Hey guys, this video is about a bird's eye view of Hartford, Connecticut, created by O.H. Bailey, that was published in Boston in 1877. It's available at the Library of Congress website. I've put a link to it in the video description below. This bird's eye view provides a fascinating and generally accurate snapshot of what Hartford looked like in 1877, a time when Mark Twain was living in the city. Now, I just made another video where I picked out 5 interesting things to talk about from this bird's eye view. But there's so much that I could talk about. Here's 5 more things about the 1877 bird's eye view of Hartford. Let's zoom in to downtown Hartford. The view is looking westwards, so north is on the right. Moving north to the section of the bird's eye view showing Main Street north of Albany Avenue, there's a historic area near the intersection with Pavilion Street. Zooming in, there's 3 church buildings that existed in 1877 and are still there today and now serve African American congregations. There's Union Baptist Church, originally built in 1871 as St. Thomas Episcopal Church. There's Metropolitan AME Zion Church, built in 1874 as the North Methodist Episcopal Church. And then there's Faith Congregational Church, built in 1871 as the Windsor Avenue Congregational Church. This area is also where Spring Grove Cemetery is located. Now, the cemetery did exist in 1877, and it would be up in this area behind the Metropolitan AME Zion Church, but it's not depicted in this bird's eye view, probably because these views were created to promote different cities, and they wanted to show off the prosperity of the city, so maybe they didn't want to dwell on cemeteries. I don't know. But no cemeteries are depicted on this bird's eye view. Right nearby, at the corner of Main and Pavilion Streets, where there's now a Family Dollar store, the bird's eye view shows the state arsenal that existed there from 1812 until 1909. Here's a postcard view of the arsenal. The arsenal was discontinued when the new state armory that we are familiar with today near the state capitol was dedicated. An article appeared in the Hartford Courant on September 23, 1880, entitled "The State Arsenal General Notes About the Post and Its Contents." Part of the article reads, quote, "The formidable array of cannon near the flagstaff is composed of ancient guns which would go to pieces the first time they were discharged. The Gatling guns in the gunhouse are swathed in woolen blankets because the dampness would otherwise rust the steel barrels and parts. A new gunhouse appears to be needed. With the present building, the dampness is such that it is necessary to leave the entire range of doors open in clear weather to dry out the floors and walls. The new iron fence, erected this season at an expense of $1,600, has been painted a handsome color. It is of wrought iron and rests upon iron posts sunk 4 feet into the earth, ensuring great stability." Unquote. The bird's eye view shows Hartford's original train station. The current Union Station was built in 1889 and was remodeled after a fire in 1914. But this original station was an Italian villa-style building erected in 1843. Here it is depicted in John Bachman's 1864 bird's eye view of Hartford. Notice that back then the trains arrived at street level instead of on tracks elevated above the road as they are today. Here's a photograph of the station, which was torn down in 1886. Moving further west, Asylum Avenue and Farmington Avenue still split in the same place today in the Asylum Hill neighborhood. Asylum Hill was named for the Connecticut Asylum for the Deaf and Dumb. Before that, the area was known as Lord's Hill. Erected in 1821 and shown here on the bird's eye view, the Asylum for the Deaf and Dumb later moved to West Hartford and is now the American School for the Deaf. Where the old asylum once stood is now the headquarters of the Hartford. Just north of the asylum, along Garden Street, was the old Garden Street Reservoir, also called the Lord's Hill Reservoir. It was run by the Hartford Waterworks, which began operating in 1855. The long-lost reservoir can also be seen in Bachman's 1864 bird's eye view and in the 1917 Atlas of Hartford. There's also some surviving photographs of it. There's one that was published in an MDC pamphlet in 1955. I'm not sure about the copyright situation with that image, so I won't show it here, but I put a link to it in the description below. Moving further west, the bird's eye view shows the Mark Twain House and the adjacent bend in the Park River. Further west is Sisson Avenue, and beyond that is part of the west end of Hartford out to Prospect Avenue. In 1877, the date of this view, it had only recently been farmland, but it was just beginning to be developed at this time. Zooming in, there are many streets in this view that are familiar to us today. Smith Street, now South Whitney Street, Tremont, Oxford, Beacon, but very few houses had been built yet. Population growth after the Civil War had led to plans to develop the land for housing. In 1872, Burdett Loomis, a real estate developer, and Joseph Woodruff, a surveyor, subdivided the area west of Tremont Street between Farmington Avenue on the north and Hawthorne Street, now called Warrenton Avenue, to the south. They also opened Beacon Street for property sales in 1872. Unfortunately, growth was slowed by the Panic of 1873, so this picture captures the moment when many of the West End streets we know today had been laid out, but few houses had yet been built. And it would look like this for a while, because another panic in 1877, the very year this bird's eye view was published, caused Burdett Loomis to lose most of his money and give up his plans for the area. So no new houses were put up until 1890, when Hartford was booming again. It was a similar story on the north side of Farmington Avenue, where merchant Eugene L. Kenyon laid out streets, including one named for himself. Kenyon ended up losing most of his property to foreclosure after the panics of 1873 and 1877. And again, it was not until the 1890s that the West End began quickly filling up into the neighborhood we know today, a notable historic district filled with houses representing architectural styles of the late 19th and first quarter of the 20th century. I already mentioned real estate developer Burdett Loomis. The house he built in 1885 on Prospect Avenue still stands today. Now, his plans for the West End may have been derailed by the panics of the 1870s, but he had other investments. In 1871, he and a group of partners bought a 145-acre tract just across the West Hartford line on New Park Avenue. Here, Loomis established Charter Oak Park, where the annual Connecticut State Fair would be held until 1882. But Loomis also built a track for harness racing, which was wildly popular in 19th century America. After a successful opening year in 1874, Charter Oak Park joined the Grand Circuit of American harness racing and became one of the most prominent tracks in New England. In 1883, Loomis established one of the nation's richest stakes, a race for a purse of $10,000. The Hartford Courant called the annual contests for the Charter Oak Purse, which took place from 1883 to 1924, one of the most brilliant chapters in turf history. Over the years, all of the sport's top horses and riders competed here. Thomas Edison's company made the very first filming of harness racing ever at Charter Oak Park on July 5th, 1897. I'll put a link of where you can access this video in the description below. It's at the Library of Congress website. Starting in 1906, part of the Charter Oak property became the Coney Island imitating Luna Park. Both the racetrack and the amusement park were finally closed in the 1930s. The most well-known landmark in that vicinity today is Home Depot. So thank you for watching, and please remember, as always, if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like button. You can also subscribe, and you can also leave a comment below if you have any thoughts or suggestions for future videos. Thank you very much.